Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. Today, you're listening to this on Thursday, February 13th. Dave, how are we doing today?
Wet. It's been raining all week. Wet.
It has been a rainy past couple of days.
Fortunately, though, no snow, no ice, not many games canceled. I think maybe a couple up north, but not really in this area. So that's good. We're getting these games in, and we're getting just every day we're closer to districts. Closer
and closer, and I feel like the gap between teams is starting to narrow just that little bit, or you can start to make some speculations on, well, we're going to have seedings out in a few days for some classes, so...
Yeah, and it's kind of, there's a few teams that I'm like, well, I'm really not really looking for them to do much in districts, and there's others that I'm like really looking forward to seeing what they can, I'm looking forward to what those district championship, district semifinals might be.
Oh, well, let's go ahead and start recapping some games from Monday and Tuesday. First game I've got on the list is New Madrid County Central versus Crothersville, ended that game 50-67.
Yeah, I had the unfortunate thing of being there. New Madrid did not play well, struggled, turned the ball over. Crothersville, that game was not as close as the score. It was a pretty wide margin there, and Crothersville, just their pressure defense just overwhelmed New Madrid, and New Madrid just could not handle it. They kind of hung in late whenever some subs came in, but Crothersville's good. They are really good. They've got some guys that can score, get to the rim, and they're going to be they get a little loose with the basketball at times, but other than that, they're a really good basketball team. They've got inside, outside, and they're going to be tough come districts.
Yeah, and it seems like they're just making themselves more known to like East Prairie and Scott City, especially. It's
Absolutely.
Just that they're in that spot to be a contender for sure.
Yeah, they're going to battle those two teams if they play them for sure.
And then next up, I've got from the Ozark Foothills, Puxico versus Donovan, 79-50. I didn't mention it last week or on the last episode, but I think it's something to take note of. Landon Burchard has scored his 1,000th point as a junior, and I think that's really impressive.
Yeah, real nice player, and it's kind of what we expect from Puxico. We expect them to roll through this tournament. I think the only news is if they don't. Yeah, it's kind of what we expect from them in this tournament. They're heads and tails better than everybody else in that tournament.
Yeah, and they're playing pretty much their most complete games of the season at this point.
And it's the time to peak. If you're going to peak, you better peak now.
Yeah, and I think even Zimmerman said just on another broadcast that the only thing they thought they could do better was rebounding. And, you shore that up, and then I think you're pretty much set at that point.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then Neelyville took on Twin Rivers and finished that game 54-68.
Yeah, we're done with Neelyville. Neelyville has moved on.
Not that it wasn't a bad.
It was a good little run they had.
It was a good game too. It was very competitive for the most part. I think Twin Rivers just, they just edged it out. They got a little bit of a lead going, and then they just kept out.
Yeah, Twin Rivers. I mean, they're not a bad team. Coming in the Bluefield Christmas tournament, that we were a team they thought could maybe make a little bit of noise. And maybe knock off Richland. Didn't happen, but they're a team that's played well at times this year and played really well at times. So yeah, it's not surprising. And again, it's another team that needs to kind of be peaking as you get toward districts. They're going to have a puncher's chance. I mean, a very very small chance, but I mean, in there with East Prairie and Crothersville, you get the right game going. You might be able to pull an upset.
Yeah, for sure. And, for Twin Rivers at this point, like, you got to think about all the teams right now that have a very positive looking record, just like on paper. I feel like a lot of people are kind of thinking, well, maybe not a lot of people, but like you see records, especially, it's just like for most people, it's like, that's great. But I feel like that's a lot of teams around here have pretty decent records right now.
Yeah, a lot of just around 500, a little bit above 500. A lot of teams like that. Again, a lot of parity this year. A lot of teams very similar. And as far as the teams at the very top, as we have in our rankings, sometimes it's hard to get that 7, 8, 9, 10 because they're all kind of the same. So a lot of parity top to bottom.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving on to Tuesday games. We got Zenith Hornersville versus Kennett, 46-56.
Yeah, again, nice win for Kennett. They're on a little streak here. I think they won like 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Nice win for them. I mean, they've got some tougher games coming up. A big game coming up on Friday against Dexter. I think that could be for maybe possibly a 2 seed in that district. So a big game for them coming up, and a game that I think is winnable for them for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I say it pretty much every episode now is I like Kennett. Mm-hmm. I like seeing what they do. For skin fun, that's what I always say, and they're living up to that.
Yeah, they are, and they're fun to watch, and they're playing well right now. Again, another team that's playing well, won 4 in a row, and you're looking to play your best as you get to districts.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see what Coach McBroom has going into the future, especially.
Yeah, very good coach. I really like what he's done with their team this year.
And then next up, I've got Bernie versus Hayti, 49-62.
That was a really good game. I thought it was close throughout. I mean, I think it was tied after 3. I mean, it was just Hayti, it's kind of funny because they kind of ran a delay late in the game. I didn't expect to see Hayti run a kind of delay game, and they did, and it ended up working out for them. They hit their free throws down the stretch, and a really nice game from them. I thought that Bernie played well. It's just, Hayti, I think, just is a little bit better, has some better players.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, too, is just Hayti sped Bernie up a lot. And once they had to start to play that tempo, they kind of just, all those mistakes just became more evident of just like, turnovers, things like that, turnovers especially. And it's difficult to play that speed.
Yeah, Hayti is going to. They like to get up and down the floor, and that's kind of their MO, and that's why it kind of surprised me when they slowed it down. Kind of went to that delay, but yeah, they do such a nice job getting up and down the floor. They're so fast, and they're so fast with the ball. It's not just their speed wise, but fast with dribbling the ball up the floor, and that's 2 different things. And man, if you can get up and down the floor that quickly, handling the ball, that's tough. And so yeah, they're a tough team. I like what I see from them. They continue to get better and better. And I think they're another team I think we're really going to be looking at districts.
Yeah, and I think it was finally nice to see that faster pace Boot Hill style go up against kind of a more slower pace Stoddard County styles, just because we finally get to see like, oh, what might that shift look like, especially coming into districts?
Yeah, I think I'm assuming that Hayti probably gets a top seed in that district since they've beaten Campbell. Campbell's kind of lost a few now. I mean, that's probably going to be Hayti.
I would assume.
It's tough to tell.
It's tough to tell, but that's kind of what the gauge, like the educated guess everybody around here has made, is that, Hayti has beat Campbell head to head. So that probably gives them just that little bit of edge over, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And then next up, speaking of Campbell, I've got Campbell versus East Prairie. Finished that game 67-78.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I didn't get any eyes on this game, but I've heard that Markham and Johnson played really well in that game. A tough loss for Campbell. Campbell lost 3 straight. That's not how you want to be going into districts. I feel like you're kind of backing into districts at this point. I know they played some really tough teams, but you got to get a win here at some point just for confidence sake. And, I think that, it was kind of almost like when we talked about Sykes earlier in the year, these tough games, we want to see them win one of these tough games here coming down the stretch. But East Prairie, they're kind of back on track. I really, even in their losses, I thought they looked pretty good. The St. Mary's game, I mean, you're worn out from the night before.
Yeah, against a very good Scott City team.
Yeah, and then you have to turn around and play a very good athletic, fast, a lot like Hayti, up and down the floor over the very next night. That's tough to do.
And teams that come from St. Louis, I mean, they're a different breed.
Yeah, St. Louis basketball is really good right now, and to be honest, I think St. Louis basketball right now is better than Southeast Missouri basketball. I'll just come out and say that. I just feel that way. And that was just a tough game for them. So I don't put much stock. I mean, you lost a game, but coming off a back-to-back and playing the style that they do, that's just, we saw that in the Christmas tournament. They struggle with that. So, but I think East Prairie's playing well. Markham and Johnson, when they get going, they're tough to defend. And then you throw in Ty Wallace hitting some threes and making some defensive plays. They're a tough team. Yeah,
and I think 30% about for 3 points. That's about pretty standard for like what you want to see from a pretty positive team. Yeah, like you said, I mean, what I've kind of noticed is when East Prairie gets in this situation, when they take losses that are, I wouldn't say demoralizing, but like a little, like probably leaves you a little miffed about it, is they usually recoup and usually play pretty well. And, to see Noah Johnson and Connor Markham do that, I mean, that's pretty par for the course at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they're fun to watch too.
Oh, they're such a fun team.
I like to see teams that get up and down the floor, and I'd like to see them guard a little better. I think that may be something that comes back and bites them in the end. But man, they're fun to watch.
And then next up, I've got South Pemiscot versus Richland, 72-57.
This was a really nice game. I mean, I don't know if anybody, if you haven't seen it, that was a really nice game. South Pem, it was closer than the score. I think it was 51-50 Richland in the fourth quarter. And then South Pem ended the game with 22-6 run. Richland just turned the ball over too much. I missed too many shots just right next to the rim, kind of a Dexter. They got Dexteritis there a little bit. And but South Penn did a nice job. I'm Farmer, man. He is such a good player. My goodness. He's got that little step back 15-footer that is just unreal. Then he can get to the rim and he absorbs that contact and can score. He is. Speaking of fun to watch, he is absolutely fun to watch. I don't know if they have enough in the post to, they just don't have the height and stuff to maybe. I don't see them going really far, but man, they're fun to watch. And it was a game. This is a really good game right up to about the last half of the fourth quarter.
And for Richland, I mean, this is just another adversity game at this point.
Yeah. It's just they can't seem to win some of these, but they're playing a really tough schedule. They've got some good games coming up with some Class 1 schools that are going to be. I think they've got Delta coming up. That's going to be a big game for their district seeding. And you win that game, you assume that you're going to be the top seed because you've beaten pretty much everybody. That it's going to be big, and the district's at their place, so they've got a chance to kind of get going here a little bit, and hopefully that these last 2 weeks they can get some wins and get rolling.
Let's talk about Tri-County a little bit. So Risco versus Clarkton. Like Puxico, for Risco, this is a tournament for them to lose.
Yeah, it's only news if they don't win by a bunch.
Yeah, and finish that game 70-39. They pretty much played Risco basketball.
Yeah,
for this year.
It's kind of what you expect.
There was a scuffle on the floor. A punch was thrown. Refs got in there pretty quick. Coaches got in there pretty quick, separated it all out, and it was pretty much a handshake between coaches, and then that's pretty much it. Finished out the game.
Yeah, I've seen bigger fights at a preschool playground. It was a non-event to me. I mean, I saw it and just didn't think. I mean, you see a lot of that in basketball games. Nothing to be really made. Nothing I saw to be made a big deal about. So
I mean, hey, your emotions get going, and then one wrong word to somebody can lead to pushing and shoving.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing a game when there's a lot of aggression, and it's it's on the court, so that and it was handled quickly, and no issues there at least from my opinion.
And then what I think is probably the upset of the night when it comes to Tri-County, Southland versus Gideon, 78-75.
Southland's really came on this tournament. I mean, they're kind of slide under the radar. I think they're like 12-10, 13-10.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, they winning record, and Coach Washington does a really nice job with them, and they get to play at home. Mm-hmm. So you get a big win at home in the semifinals, and now you're going to have the championship on your home floor. So it's a big night for Southland, and I'd like to see them make kind of play well and make a game of this with Risco. I think that would be a lot of fun and, be great for the Southland program, because this is something I don't have a lot of Tri-County history in front of me, but at the same time, I for as long as I've been around, I've not heard of Southland being in a Tri-County championship very often, if even at all. So this is great for their program and great for them, and hopefully their school is excited about that.
For sure. And, this is a win against a Gideon team that is improving.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Gideon team that, at the beginning of the year, we're like, well, are they good? Are they not good? We didn't really know. And then they get seeded 16th in the Christmas tournament, and it's like that probably was, they were seeded way too low for as good as they are. And so this Southland team coming in and winning that game, that's a good win.
Yeah, for sure. Next game I have on the list is Kelly versus Portageville, 72-69.
And this was a big game for Kelly because Kelly probably gets out of that last seed in that district with this win. Portageville will probably be that last seed. Kelly will get probably New Madrid. Mm-hmm. And, that's not an unwinnable game. So, maybe in the districts at their home floor. So this was a huge win for Kelly. Yeah,
I could definitely tell that it was more of a storyline game. And, for Kelly, this was kind of a win that you kind of needed at this point too. Just to kind of push forward.
Any win at this point is a good win for Kelly, but they've kind of came on a little bit. They won the consolation bracket in the Scott Miss, and I think they just had 2 wins going into that. So this is I think 3 wins in a row for them, And so that's more wins than they had coming into this, before they went on this streak. So good for them. Coach Trimmer, he's been around a long, long time. And, they had a really nice team last year, but lost so much from that team. It's just kind of a rebuild year for them.
Yeah, definitely. And, at the end of the day, talk about records all you want, but once you get into districts, records don't matter.
No, not at all.
Next up, I've got Oran versus Bloomfield, 43-46. Have a coworker that's very excited about this one.
Yeah, a battle of the old Oran Bloomfield tournament. I guess that was back in the late '60s. These two teams used to battle a lot, and been a while since they've really. They've played, but you don't really hear much about it. So this is a good win for Bloomfield. A nice little small school win, and hopefully this kind of builds them up. And they're quite a couple games under 500. Maybe they can get to that 500 mark, and that'd be a great year for Bloomfield and Coach Sindel. Yeah,
for sure, especially from a young coach that has got a lot of acumen. I think everything I hear about Coach Sindel is a lot of praise.
Yeah, he does a nice job with his team. They play a certain style, and it's not the prettiest style, but his team always seems to play hard. They're just not much scoring there. And I think they realize that they can't score a lot, so they have to kind of drag teams down in the mud, kind of have rock fights instead of kind of what we call rock fights in football, just the low scoring games, and you just drag people down with you and just hope you can pull it out in the end. And Bloomfield was able to do that with Oran, and they've got some winnable games coming up here, and so maybe they can get to that 500 mark
for sure. Moving on, Dexter versus Bell City, 67-35.
Yeah, still playing without Turnbow, but they had Ibrahim back. Both those guys were out against Advance, and good Stoddard County win. It is what it is. Dexter should win that game. Should probably win it by that amount. I think they've got to get Turnbow healthy.
Yeah, I would say so.
He really brings a lot of energy to that team, and Temple's had a great game. I think he had 21 or so. You've got. I think you need Turnbow and Ibrahim. He didn't play much. I think he only had 2 points. So both of those guys, you need to get them healthy for this for districts if you want to have a chance.
Yeah, especially with Kennett and Notre Dame, kind of on the upswing, I would say.
Yeah, both of them for sure. Notre Dame, they had a big win over Hillsborough. Tough game. Johnson had a big game for them. Dohan played well, but Hillsborough was a tough team, and they really battled together. So that was a good win for Notre Dame to put them right at 500. You got Kennett creeping toward 500. Dexter just hit 500. You got a lot of teams that are just right there, at the same level. They'll seed before Dexter plays Notre Dame. So you would kind of assume Notre Dame would probably get that top seed, but who knows? You never know.
Yeah, most likely. And then next up, I've got Malden versus Scott City, 25-86.
Yeah, Scott City just rolling. At this point, Scott City is one of the best teams in the area, and they're just rolling, and they're looking toward that district tournament and just looking to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, and for me, I think Class 3 is a pretty exciting class right now too when it comes to districts. Just to think about what teams are going to end up playing each other.
My only problem with Class 3 is after seeing Principia.
Yeah,
it's like good luck. Just once you get out of districts, it's like, yeah, okay, well, good season, but here's Principia.
Yeah, it's whatever team comes out of Class 3. It's a David and Goliath situation that you're going to be playing against Principia, because I've seen them play some very good teams this year, and they don't miss a beat.
No, they don't. It reminds me a lot of when Dexter went, I think, in 2004 to the Final Four. They had great job. You get to the Final Four, everybody's excited, then you get Vashon, and that was a whole other ball game there.
Hey, just have to see how things turn out. And then New Madrid County Central versus Cape Central, 35-59.
Yeah, Cape Central is playing without Edwards. He's done for the year. That kind of drops them, but they were still able to take care of this game. Cape Central is looking for some scoring, looking to that they really are missing Edwards on the inside. Not much of an inside play for Cape Central. New Madrid played without Marvion Cranford. He was out that game too. So it was both teams are missing their big guys, and just kind of, like I said, Cape Central just trying to find scoring. Rivers had a pretty good game, but other than that, it was just a kind of a struggle for both teams to score.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest exclamation point on this season, is that your scoring has kind of been your biggest hindrance. Defense cohesion, I think they're really starting to find that. I've seen them play teams like the way they need to, like they played Jackson. Do you think that's just going to be the biggest thing that's going to keep them down right now?
Yeah, they can guard, but I don't think that they're. with Edwards, I don't feel that they're going to be a factor in districts. I feel like Friday night against Sykeston, you're going to get pretty much what you saw in the SEMO Conference tournament. I just don't. They're just not. I don't think they have the firepower that they can compete against a Farmington or a Sykeston for that district now. It's a tough break for them, but injuries happen, and players come and go sometimes, and it's just a tough break for Cape Central, and so now they're going to have to find a way to play without him and find somebody, because that's a lot to replace. He does a lot. He did a lot for them, and so they're just got to find some way to replace what he brought in a short amount of time. You just don't have a lot of time to get this replaced. Yeah,
and for Lamont Frazier, what do you take away from this year? Of just your first year of coaching this team?
Well, I think you've kind of instilled what you expect from these guys. I think you kind of instilled what your offense and defense is going to be. I think they're going to be a tough-nosed defensive team. They're going to use their athletes to spread the floor and try to get to the rim. But I think defense is going to be their main thing. They're really going to get after you in guard, and I think you just kind of instill this to your program and hope that it carries over to next year. And Edwards, I'm assuming would be back next year, and they've got a good group coming back next year as well. So he has a lot to build on after this year, and they're not while teams like Sykeston lose a ton of seniors and stuff, they've got a lot coming back. So I think he's going to be fine.
It's a different style of Cape Central basketball to see. And I'm curious of what it's going to be like next year, especially when SEMO Conference rolls around, when everybody's kind of, flexing their new muscles at that point, to see how they're going to, one, recoup this team, two, how they're going to perform.
Yeah, and again, we'll see who's you never know. One thing I've learned the last couple of years, you never know who's going to be on what team from one year to the next. So you never know. So, but just looking at it now, Cape Central is going to be really good next year, and I think that Coach Frazier knows that they'll probably be better next year than this year. So I think that's one of those where you just instill what you expect from these guys, kind of get your plan in place, and then next year you can kind of build on that.
Do you want to do power rankings?
Absolutely.
All right. Top 10 power rankings, starting with small schools, classes 1 through 3. My number 1, Puxico Indians.
My number 1 is Scott City. I'm going to stick with them. I was told or read something where, the coaches know more than I do. Coaches have Puxico at number 2 in their state poll, so I'm going to have Puxico number 2 in my poll.
Okay. For me, at this point, I think Puxico's playing, like I said, their most complete game. Every question I had about them going into the season and midway through the season of just like, can you keep up kind of the expectation of what you've been given? I feel like they have, especially with these past few games. We made the joke of stop playing with your food, and they've definitely stopped doing that. So, I think going forward, there might be some adversity going into districts. Who knows? It's a big question mark for me at this point. Somebody could give them a game, or they might just roll through. I don't know. But for me right now, Puxico is probably just going to continue to be my number 1.
Yeah, and I love Scott City. I've been on them all year, and they've done nothing to tell me. I mean, they beat a very good East Prairie team. They continue just to roll through teams. They played Class 5 teams very, very close, and played. They've done nothing. They with a tough schedule to show me that they're not the number 1 team.
Yeah,
and Puxico number 2, they're a very good team too, for the same reason that you said. But like I said, I'm going to agree with the coaches and go number 2.
Yeah, and I've taken Scott City as my number 2, just for all the reasons you've said. They feel like a complete team as well. Their acumen. They don't have as many like completely dominant wins as Puxico at this point, but I feel like that's just apples and oranges too. It's very hard to compare those.
Yeah, they play a lot of different teams. Like I said, Scott City plays. I think they play a tough schedule. You're playing teams like Cape Central and schools like that. Those are tough teams, and they're both really good teams. I mean, what can you say?
I will say this. Puxico adding that Potosi game to that.
That's going to be a big benefit for them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's a bigger team that's really good. So I think that's definitely going to be a more of a proving game at this point, or at least just to buff up your end of season.
Yeah.
My number 3, I've taken Risco.
My number 3, I've got Caruthersville. I think they just continue to play well. They won the Boot Hill Conference tournament. They're just kind of rolling. They've only lost once since the new year, and that was to Campbell in overtime. And I really like their team, and I think they just continue to get better.
And I've taken Risco just because their record shows of how good of a team they are. We've made the comments of just like, well, Tri-Counties, you're not playing that many great teams to really buff up your schedule, anything like that. But I still think they're in that team of destiny slot for me. Absolutely. And, when they play tough games, they play them tough, and their losses are close losses.
Yeah. They've won like 13 in a row, I believe. Yeah. So, that's a pretty good streak too.
It's very hard to debate. And I've taken Caruthersville for my number 4, pretty much for every reason that you said.
Yeah. And my number 4 is Risco for everything you said. So we've just got kind of our top 4 kind of flipped, but there we go.
My number 5 is East Prairie.
Same here.
Which I think that Campbell win, I think that's really what kind of pushed them ahead at this point. Their loss to Scott City and their loss to St. Mary's, we talked about that earlier, was, that's a difficult loss to a very good Scott City's team. And then the loss to St. Mary's, that was just how tired are you? You're not really popping off as much as you were. You're probably exhausted, but at the same time, I really can't take that much stock in it. But the win against Campbell and the highlights I saw of Markman Johnson playing a really good game, and their supporting cast too, just really coming out and showing out. I think they've earned that 5 spot for me.
Yeah, they're good, and they should be. Getting ready for this district tournament, and that'll be a tough. We talked about the Scott City Woodland possibility of them matching up, but honestly, if you look at our top 10, the better matchup might be East Prairie, Caruthersville for a district title. So, that's going to be, if they were to match up, that would be a heck of a game.
Well, not to sleep on Woodland too much, because I've taken Woodland for my number 6.
My number 6, I have Hayti. I think Hayti just continues to play well. They did have the loss to Caruthersville, but I've already talked about what I think about Caruthersville, and Hayti, I think they're playing very well right now.
I've taken Woodland as my number 6, just keeping them right below that top 5. They've got some tough games coming up that are really going to kind of show me it's like, all right, was I sleeping on you these past couple weeks? Can you really recoup that loss to Puxico and just show out? They got that chance. They're playing Charleston. They're playing Puxico again, obviously. Yep. So I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled on that.
Yep.
And then my number 7, I've taken Charleston.
My number 7, I've got Charleston as well. I think even though they took a tough loss to Sykeston, but I never take that into account, because those two teams, it's either going to be a blowout or really close, and it just happened to be a blowout this time. But Charleston has been playing everybody really close. They're a really good team. I probably think they're better than 7 in my thing, but at some point you have to look at records too, and kind of you are what your record says you are. So they're right around 500. I think that they played really tough teams. We'll find out in districts. We'll find out exactly how good they are, and but we kind of got to wait until then.
Yeah, no, I think completely agree with you. For me right now, they are in that like wild card spot where it's like they could be amazing, they could lose out completely, and I'm not really sure where I stand on it.
It's tough to judge a Charleston in this top 10 just because the teams they play are not what the other teams are playing. Just the honest truth. They're just not playing the same type teams, and so it's just tough to judge.
Yeah, especially thinking that Sykeston game, I feel like that's more telling for Sykeston's mentality than it was for Charleston's at that point.
Yeah, Sykeston's rolling right now. So,
and that was we talked about it probably last week. I've talked about it with my coworkers. That's the first time I felt like Sykeston hit their real stride, and they look like just like a complete team.
Yeah,
popping off on all cylinders. Yeah. So for Charleston to go up against that, like you said, I don't know how much stock I can take into it. I feel like they actually hung with Sykeston pretty well for what was happening at that moment, but that's just me.
Yeah.
And then my number 8, I've taken Hayti.
My number 8, I have Campbell. Even though they've lost a couple, I think they've lost 3 in a row now. I believe.
It's been a tough couple goes for Campbell.
But at the same time, I still think they're a good team. I've dropped them quite a bit here on my board, but I still think they're a good team. It's just they've played some tough teams. You've got to win one of these games. You've got to win one of them soon.
Yeah, and I've taken Hayti as my number 8 just because kind of what you talked about before. They're kind of in that similar spot with Campbell for me, but at the same time, that win over Bernie is like, well, at this point, Campbell's taken 3 losses. They're kind of in this recoup phase where you need a win soon. Hayty's gotten a win against Bernie. They look pretty good in that, played them just the way that they needed to. That's why I've taken them as number 8. And then my number 9, I've taken Campbell.
My number 9, I have Woodland. how they've fallen on my board.
Yeah.
But I didn't like what I know they're missing some guys, and they played Confluence pretty close. Mm-hmm. But again, they're another team. I need to see them win. I feel like they play a little soft at times. I think they need to play tougher to win some of these tough games, and they're going to have that opportunity. I mean, they've got, like you said, they've got Charleston, they've got Puxico. They're going to have opportunities to in the next week or so to boost their ranking by a bunch. But right now, 2 losses in a row. That's I'm gonna drop you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna drop
you. Yeah, I think playing Confluence is as tough as they did. I mean, I don't know how Confluence looks against some of the other teams that were at the 6-man, but that's a team like from around that St. Louis area. They play a different style of game.
Yeah, they do, and they played well. Even though their big man was out, but it was
a very physical game too.
The loss to Kennett is more alarming to me.
Yeah, that's the
than
one
than the one to Confluence. Confluence I completely get. If it was just a win over Kennett and then a Confluence loss like that, I would probably have them at probably 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I think the only saving grace from that Kennett game is how far I saw that margin decrease from what it was at half to the end of the game, where it just kind of felt like, okay, Woodland kind of was like, okay, we need to start getting this back together.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's going to separate them in the games coming up, but I feel like they have a chance to kind of make good on that.
Oh, absolutely.
And then my number 10, I'm taking South Pemiscot.
My number 10, I took Bernie.
Okay.
I've had South Pem in there for a while, and they keep losing games. They just keep losing. They played Richland, and I thought it was a pretty even game with up until like the last couple of minutes. They did pull ahead and win it, but here Bernie's been winning some games. They did lose to Hayti, but they played well, and I don't know. I just think right now I just want to switch it up a little bit. South Pem's right there,
sure,
but each week it seems like they lose, they just, and I'm like, I need to put someone else in there. So I put Bernie.
Yeah. And I'm taking South Pemiscot just because I don't feel like it's good to gamble on whether South Pem is going to win or lose, because they could just completely fool me and end up, I don't know where they're going to end up in districts. I really don't.
Yeah, and there's no telling. I mean, they could run through districts and win it and make another run to the Final Four. I mean, it's a definite possibility. I just right now, I just think just from the eye test, what I saw, on Tuesday night, Bernie even though in a loss and South Pem in a win, I just felt like Bernie looked like a more complete team inside, outside game, offensively, defensively. I just felt like then South Pem in a win, better than South Pem. It's tough to judge these teams like that. And again, I've had South Pem as my number 10 the last couple of weeks. I thought it was time to just kind of switch it up a little bit. But South Pem's right there. I mean, they're right there with them.
I can say Bernie's getting receiving votes from me too. I like Bernie a lot. The biggest takeaway I think is that, for Coach Long especially, is that this was a good learning season.
Oh yeah.
And coming from last year where you were sub 500 to now being like, okay, you're squarely in that over 500 range. I mean, what's the next 2 years going to look like, especially for all these sophomores that are really starting to gel with each other, really starting to like either find their place or like starting to accept it. Once they start bulking up, once they start coming to their own, I feel like they're going to be a very scary team.
Yeah, there's going to be several teams like that because there's, they're one of several teams that are playing a lot of sophomores. Mm-hmm. And this basketball here is going to look really good in a couple of years. I mean, even next year it's going to be better, but in 2 years I think it's going to be really, really good because there's a lot of teams like Bernie that have a lot of sophomores playing. And man, you're definitely right. I think they're a team that's going to be just a tough team to play in the next year or two.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it all comes down to mentality to a point too, and I think Coach Long really instills that mentality into his players.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: don't sleep on them in districts. For any, I mean, we've talked Puxico, we've talked Charleston, but I mean, don't sleep on a Puxico team that people are kind of looking past. And they're sophomores. They're just naive enough to think that they did not realize that they're the underdogs and might come out there and pull an upset or two. So I'm certainly not counting them out of any kind of district play or anything because they could very well make a run this year. Who knows? I mean, it's going to be tough, very, very tough. But they're a team that's shown some toughness in some big games, and man, put them in a close game at the end. Who knows?
Yeah. Once we get to districts too, I mean,
all bets are off. It doesn't matter. You could be 25-1. I've seen a team, Clearwater, back in the mid 80s, 25-0, lost in districts. Sykeston a few years back were like 25, 26-0, lost in districts. So undefeated teams can lose in districts. Anybody can lose in districts.
Absolutely. I mean, you can say any given Sunday for any football examples, but man, the ball bounces any way it wants to once you get into these tough games.
Yeah, and that's the thing is in district tournament, it's not a best of 3, best of 5, best of 7 series. It's a best of 1. Yeah. I mean, whoever plays the best that night is going to win and move on. And there's been a lot of really, really good basketball teams that have been upset because the other team just played a little bit better on that night. And it doesn't matter what says on your jersey, what your record is coming in. It doesn't matter at all. It just matters on how you play that night.
All right, let's move to upcoming games.
You want to do the large school top 5?
I keep forgetting. I'm so sorry.
I know but I've got some changes this time. So yeah? I do have some changes.
I mean, I've got Sykeston, Jackson, Cape Central, Notre Dame, and then I'm taking Kennett.
Well, I'll be. That's what I've got. So,
sorry to play spoiler to you.
Yeah.
But.
Okay. Well, that's what I've got. So there's no need to. I thought throwing Kennett in there was going to be something, but I guess not.
Hey, like I said, it's frisky and fun. It's a wild card team. They could play really great one day. They could, I don't know, lose to Dexter soon. Who knows? But at the same time, I feel like for Jackson, that loss to Cape Central, that was kind of like a dampening, but Cape losing Edwards.
Yeah, Cape losing Edwards bumps them down. And I was almost tempted to put Notre Dame maybe over Cape Central. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I kind of debated about that, but I'm like, no, Cape Central still has that chance to, they still have a chance to kind of, get things, right. And, so we'll see how the last couple of weeks play out.
Sorry to take the wind out of your sails on that one, but all right, upcoming games. Let's talk about Thursday games. We get the Tri-County final, Risco and Southland.
I would love to see a close game. I don't think it's probably going to be a close game. I think Risco's heads and tails above, but I would love Southland playing at home in a situation that, again, I'm not sure how many times they played in the championship down there, but it can't be a lot. And I would love to see them, kind of make a game of it and do something here to kind of get, take notice of the Southland program. Cause, for many years they've kind of been kind of the bottom of that Tri-County conference. And it's really nice seeing them have some success.
Yeah. I will always vouch for a close game when it comes to broadcast. Not that we're broadcasting this game, but just in general, I always want to see a close game. At the same time, I really favor Risco as a team, as a program. Those kids are great kids, and they're my team of destiny. I like them a whole lot. So to see them keep rolling, I mean, that's my expectation.
I'm one pretty much. I think you're going to see what you want.
Next up, we got Campbell versus Bernie. That's going to be a game that we're broadcasting on A-Corp Sports. That should be a fun one.
It should be. They played earlier in the year, and it was a pretty close game. Campbell just kind of pulled it out in the end in the tournament. I guess it was the Campbell tournament. I know it rotates every year. I never can keep up to where it is.
It was the Campbell tournament this year.
But yeah, so, this time it's going to be at Bernie. So you're going to have some home court advantage there for Bernie, and we've seen Bernie plays very well at home, and it's a tough place to play. So we'll see how this plays out. Campbell coming in on a 4-game or 3-game losing streak. You don't want it to get to 4.
Yeah, they're going to be they're cheesing for a win, and they're probably going to be coming at it with everything they got. I think for Bernie at this point, I'm not going to say they're also cheesing for a win, but this would be a great win for them, especially in these last couple weeks. Yeah,
I feel like Campbell is kind of in more of a need for a win here than Bernie. I think they're kind of expected to win. I think that they're getting a lot of it. They've gotten a lot of attention this year, and I think that they're kind of the favorites to win this. So I think if they don't win, it's more of a news than if they lose this game to Bernie.
Yeah, absolutely. People are predicting a barn burner. I'm not going to go that far. I don't want to jinx it and say that it's not going to be close, but that's what I'm hoping for.
It feels like it's going to be a really good game, goes down the wire. You feel like it's going to be one of those type games.
That's one of those anticipation games, I think. As soon as you see it on the schedule, you're like, okay, that's going to be a close one.
Yeah. I was looking at these games, and only one I marked down for Thursday really was that Campbell-Bernie game, because I'm like, that's the one to watch for sure.
I've marked down a couple more just to play devil's advocate on a couple games. I've got Malden versus Bloomfield.
Yeah, that Bloomfield should get another win here. Again, creep up toward that 500 mark, and Malden still just they got their win against the Southland team who's doing really well. So that win looks a lot better by the day. But Bloomfield playing at home, I think they would be the favorite in this one.
agree with you. At the same time, I'm kind of just razzing my coworker at this point that I think Malden might get a second win. And, they play Hawcom either next week or very soon. And I think that's another winnable game for Malden.
Yeah. They could have a couple there.
A Malden team that, that first win, that probably feels pretty good to finally get that. But at the same time, if you can get a couple more wins on your season, I mean, that's not going to hurt your confidence at that point.
Can the basketball team get more wins than the football team? Chase is on.
And then the other game I have down is Richland versus Delta.
Yeah, and that's actually a big game because a big game for that Class 1, District 2. I believe it's District 2. I always get confused on the numbers, but pretty sure it's District 2. But a big game for that district for seeding wise because, I think like I said, if Richland wins that game, I would assume they would be the top seed, and you definitely want to be in the top seed in that tournament. Still going to be, Delta, Bell City, Leopold. Those teams are going to battle it out. But yeah, I think you definitely want to be the top seeds. That's a big game for Richland, and you're going to Delta. It's not an easy place to play.
Yeah, and I've seen this Delta team play against Kelly in the Consolation for the Scott Miss, and they played a very tough, hard game of basketball. And I think for Richland, they've had struggles, and if Delta finds them on the right night, I've seen what Bell City does on the right night. So I think. For Richland, I mean, this is a game that you want to win at this point.
Yeah, I think if you're Richland, you need to go in there and make a statement here.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to. You've played some really tough teams. You have, yeah, and you played New Madrid, you played South Pim here in this last week, and you lost both of them. This is a game that you should come in and make a statement like, hey, those were tough games. This is who we are. And you need to start peaking now. And we've been waiting for them to do this all year. And I think for them, the time is now to make a little run and start winning some games.
Yeah, to hit your stride going into districts. I mean, momentum's important for any team at this point. And for Richland, I feel like it's doubly so because I've seen them perform very well in some circumstances. I need to see it now. Like it's got to start happening now.
Yeah, I need to see something from Richland.
Let's move on to Friday. I've got South Iron versus Crothersville.
This game, I think, would have been better about a month ago before South Iron had some. I think they lost a couple players, injury. One player moved. I think there's some. They've lost a couple of their players, but South Iron has been one of the better teams in the kind of. I don't know what area you call them, but it's north of southeast Missouri. I don't know what area that is, but they've been one of the better teams up there for a long time, and they come down and playing a different style team in Crothersville, and they don't see many teams like Crothersville up there with the speed and athleticism that they have. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think Crothersville continues to roll here. I think a team like South Iron it just doesn't match up well with them.
Yeah, I think for Crothersville this is just another learning experience game because you get to see a different style, you said. Yeah, I'm going to take Crothersville in this game too. Like you said, South Iron's been going through some difficulties. But at the same time, for Crothersville, beef up your schedule and just that little bit more pushing into districts. Next up, I've got Woodland versus Charleston.
Yeah, this is a game, I think I'm interested to see this game just to see how Woodland plays Charleston. But for me, it's how Charleston plays. Yes. Charleston has played a really, again, they played a really tough schedule. We've went over that. This is a team more it's a Class 3 team, which is, they're now Class 2, but, this is a team that they've owned in the past. I mean, in past years that they've had no issue with Woodland until this year. And so I want to see how they play them. They play well at home, unless they're playing Sykeston, but they typically play well at home. And so we'll see how that game plays out. But I'm very interested to see how that game unfolds because it could go several different ways.
I do think the implications of this game, considering common opponents between these teams now, is, the expectation is, what did Puxico do to Woodland? What can Charleston do to Woodland? Then we kind of figure out, we get to see, is this the same Woodland team that lost to Puxico, or have they turned it back on? For Charleston, it's, this is kind of your litmus test of, this is the team that played your competition. How well do you play against them?
Yeah, I know Charleston's been hearing all year long about how good Puxico is and how good, that's been in their ear all year long. Kind of almost reversed the Puxico Woodland. We were kind of talking up Woodland, thinking they were really good, and then we talked them up, and it's kind of for Puxico, it's kind of the reverse of when it gets into districts. So this, like you said, this Woodland team's kind of the one in the middle.
Yeah.
They're kind of the one that's been put in the middle here. And so it'll be interesting to see how they play against them. I mean, you really can't, it's tough to judge, one team playing against another team, against another, the 3 degrees there, whatever. But at the same time, it will give us a little bit of an indication. These two teams played, I believe, in the Christmas tournament, and Woodland pulled it out. So we'll see what they can do on Charleston's floor.
Yeah, and I think for Charleston at this point, I'm not saying they're playing spoiler to Puxico, because that feels like that's kind of what we've been saying. But at the same time, they've got those district aspirations. They're a team that wins those banners. And, to be knocked down from Class 3 to Class 2, you're kind of having to flex your muscles a little bit. And I'm honestly not sure where this will end up at this point.
No, and we can talk. As we get closer to that district tournament, I'm sure when we see the seeds and stuff, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about the possible matchups and when it happens and everything like that. But as far as this game goes, I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think these two teams kind of match up well. I really do. I think they both like to get up and down the floor. They both can get out and guard you a little bit. It'll be just, but for me, it's going to be interesting to see how much Charleston, they lost, I believe, a close one to Woodland in the Christmas tournament. Be interesting to see how much they've improved, if at all, or is Woodland, what we get from, again, this game could go many different ways, and I'm just very interested to see which way it goes.
Exactly. Moving on, let's talk about Kennett versus Dexter.
A big game for districts. Maybe not the most exciting game that of the night, but a game that's got some pretty good implications for district tournament seedings. And if you're either one of these teams, you want to get a SEMO conference win on top of that. It's going to be at Dexter, so you would think that would give them the advantage. But at the BEC, it's not always a great home court advantage. So, but at the same time, Dexter's going to have to contain Dyson Watson. If Turnbow's not back for Dexter, I really think that I really think Kennett's the favorite here.
Yeah, I think if it's a game of shutdowns, shut down Dyson Watson. If Turnbow's not back, then you got to shut down Temples on that 3-pointer, because that's where the majority of points will be scored for Dexter.
Yeah, him and Sepulvedo. Sepulvedo's going to get his. I mean, he tends to get that 15, 16 points every night, whether it's getting to the rim or pulling up, hitting some jumpers. You can pretty much just write that in ink almost, that he's going to get those. But at the same time, Temples is kind of the, especially with Turnbow out, they're looking outside. They're shooting a lot of threes. I really hope Turnbow and Ibrahim are healthy. That gives Dexter that inside game, and that can kind of help them against Kennett. It was a really good game the first time they played, so it'd be interesting to see what happens this time. But hopefully everybody's healthy and good to go.
And then I've got Notre Dame versus Poplar Bluff.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, they've won a couple of games. Poplar Bluff, they're a team that's just right now just ravaged by injuries. Yeah. And I'm not sure if any of those guys are going to be back. If they're not back, then I think Notre Dame should win this game, double figures. If they are back, then it's a really good game. And this is a game that could go down to the wire. I think they're two very evenly matched teams. They played in the SEMO Conference tournament. It was a good game. I think you'd see a very similar game. But again, Poplar Bluff's got to be healthy, and I don't know, they're missing some guys there that is making life very difficult for them right now.
For sure. For Notre Dame, I mean, a win for them at this spot, at this late in the season, I think is nothing but a benefit. But at the same time, for Poplar Bluff, like you said, if they're as injured as they have been the past couple of weeks, I don't really see a clear way to win this game.
Yeah.
Then next up, I've got the OFC final, Twin Rivers versus Puxico.
And we kind of talked about that. Puxico's the clear favorite in this tournament. Yes. I think it's the only story is if this game is really close or Puxico loses. I think I think Puxico should roll through this and win another tournament title, which would be their third this year. I think.
Which that would be a first time in school history.
Yeah, and then so you would have a chance to get a fourth, and the fourth would be the I guess fourth and fifth I guess would be the big one. I guess if you want to talk districts or state, but yeah, those would be the. You want to get this one so you can get those fourth and fifth for sure.
Yeah, and I mean for Twin Rivers, I mean, I think you understand the narrative that's going into this game. You're going to have to play your hardest if you want to, even make a dent in kind of what this dominant Puxico defense has been able to do all year. But I don't know. I've been surprised by teams before. I'm not going to say it's an out-and-out win. I mean, you would think that, but... I
mean, yeah. I mean, on paper, it looks like Puxico wins this game 20, 25 points. Yeah. On paper. games aren't played on paper; they're played on a court. So we'll see what Twin Rivers and if Puxico doesn't show up, then it could flip. But again, I think this is one of those that Puxico should kind of like the Tri-County. Puxico should take care of business.
Exactly. And then final game I've got on my listing, I've got Cape Central versus Sykeston on Sykeston's homecoming. We will be streaming that on A-Corp Sports.
Could be the Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah, I'm seeing your face right now.
I just don't think that after seeing Cape play on Tuesday night, I just don't see it. I just don't see how they're going to be able to play with Sykeston. Sykeston just plays so much better. Now I know Cape gets up for Sykeston, and I would love to see a good game in this game. I mean, it'd be great for you guys for the broadcast,
sure.
And it's fun to see because when these two teams play a really close game, it gets. I mean, that gym can be electric. I just don't see it. I want to see it. I just don't see it.
Yeah, same thing like we said with the last game is that I'm not going to call it an out win, but this one's an even harder one to say that I don't think Sykeston's going to lose this game. Just considering Edwards being out for Cape, being pretty much your scorer for that team, that really doesn't leave you that many avenues to do what you want to do with this game.
Yeah, and especially with him just, he's only been out about a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Cape Central can muster enough offense to make this a game. And I just don't see it. And somebody gets hot, I could be wrong if Sykeston has an off game, or something of that nature. But I think just from what I've seen so far, I think Sykeston rolls.
All right, Dave, anything I missed?
I don't think so. Just pretty much, I think we got a Hayti Richland game on Saturday. That might be a fun game, but for the most part, we've got some. We're winding down.
Yeah.
One more week of regular season for the small schools after this, and man, it's getting close. We should start seeing some seeds come out pretty soon for these district tournaments. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm thinking Class 2 District 3 comes out tomorrow.
I believe you're right. Yes.
So I mean, we're really getting close to it. I'm so excited for districts at this point. This has been a heck of a season.
It's been a lot of fun, and the parity I think makes it a lot of fun. And I don't know that we've got the. I don't know how many teams that we have that are actually going to be state title contenders. But the number of teams that we have that are district title contenders and the stuff is just, it makes it a lot of fun to watch. And that's something that it just makes it a lot of fun. Like each week we do our top 10 and each week they're completely different than the week before just because teams are beating other teams. It's just been a lot of parity this year and a lot of fun.
Yeah. A lot of separation when it comes to just like classes at this point too, of just like, well, this person's good or this team's good in this class and this team's good in this class. And they don't feel miles apart, but you can kind of just feel like that slight separation that puts an edge over.
Yeah, definitely. The more we play, the more separation you see. And but again, these games get played on one night, and whoever plays the best on that one night. There's so many times I've seen top seeds get upset by a 4 seed, or it happens a lot. And if you don't come to play. And if you just have one off night, that's your season's over.
And I think it's great for us too, because, as taking the spot of the mostly unbiased, situation that we're in, I mean, we just get to watch good games at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't have a dog in any fight. I just enjoy good basketball and love watching it, and I'll try to watch as much as I can.
All right, Dave, any final thoughts for the episode?
No, I'm just ready to get to the next week.
All right. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you Monday.